Hello everyone, it's David here. I'm not doing singing in this one, and I haven't been out in the car because the jet stream's been pushing cold weather, or at least cloudy, rainy weather over us. Any people who are interested in weather, not climate, but weather, might be interested in looking into the jet stream and how it works. But I've got a couple of books I thought I might show you. One's Granville Bradshaw, and A Flawed Genius, second edition by Barry M. Jones, and it's from, who is it? I think he self-published it. Panther Publishing, because Granville Jones did design the engine for the Panther motorbike. But the reason I'm showing you this is because I don't know whether I've told you this before, but he had an idea that the best cooling for an engine, because he did air-cooled engines in the First World War, and there's you can see there the Dragonfly engine, and you can see a lovely overhead cam engine, overhead valve engine that was for the Panther motorbike. And he had all sorts of very interesting ideas, but he certainly knew about, or had thought a lot about, air cooling. But he also thought that really the best thing, because there were water-cooled engines which came next, was oil cooling of engines. And in this book, there's a whole section here, how thankful, oil-cooled motorcycle. And oil cooling, he said, was the best way to do it. He said oil could absorb more heat, and that it made the engines run quieter. And you see, he's got the top of the engine air cooled for the valves, the top of the cylinder, but he's got the most of it being by oil. And he talks about oil-cooled engines in the book, and it's really worth reading. And here's an engine look, which has very little in the way of air cooling at the top, but a lot of oil. And he put it to practice. One of the cars he owned, he removed the water from the system, filled it up with a thin oil, and it worked very well. I've never had the courage to do that to my X19, to remove the water, but put the oil. But think about it, you can't have any more corrosion in the system. It certainly would absorb more heat. It would be quieter. I don't know why it's not done, because water cooling is quite an old idea, and the amount of glycol, sugar, that they put into it now, and they call it coolant. But it might be better to, it's an idea, perhaps some of you might have an engine, a water-cooled engine in the car, and it might be an old one, and you might think, well, why not just replace it with oil? You would never have to change it, you would only have to top it up. I don't know about when water heats up, it's pressurized, but oil can be pressurized as well, seeing it's a liquid. But anyway, it's a jolly interesting book. You'd think I was an Englishman, wouldn't you? It's a jolly interesting book. Panther Publishing, and all sorts of engines, modern engines, toroidal engines, and things that people talk about as being the latest. The latest thing, there's a toroidal engine that is designed there, and he used to draw in the bath. He used to get in the bath, and he would put a drawing board across it and stay in there, and there's another, and do these drawings there. These engines worked, by the way. They weren't just ideas. So that's that. He's well worth. Granville Bradshaw, A Flawed Genius, second edition, Panther, Barry M. Jones. There we go. He certainly knows something about it, so I'll look out to him. And then the other thing I might show you is this, which it's fallen on the floor. The Lanchester Legacy. Now, most people don't know about Lanchester, and he designed the first British car. And as I've said before, Lanchesters were a cut above Rolls-Royces. But the original Lanchesters had a very interesting, I think, and I don't think many people know about it, carburettor. And petrol at the time, you had to sometimes buy from a chemist, benzene. And he had the engine, you can see in that one, the engine was between the two front seats of the chauffeur. And he had a tiller to steer it, and the tiller had lead at the end of the handle, which worked as a damper. He designed the First damper, hydraulic damper, vibration damper for engines, counter-rotating shafts to smooth out the engine. He invented the disc brake. Well, I can't go into all, but it's a good book. But here's his carburettor, the Lanchester carburettor, and it doesn't work. And you see, look, no moving parts, no float chamber, jet, petrol pipes, cocks, leaks, chance of fire, water and dirt do not hurt it. How's that possible? Well, you've got the petrol tank underneath it, which you pressurize with that pump handle in the middle. And then the water goes up through wicks. And wicks have been used for hundreds of years in lamps, and there's no reason they couldn't be used for a carburettor, really, with a little bit of thought. The petrol naturally wicks up, the dirt is left behind, the air's drawn through the wick, as you can see. You've got a regulator handle, which is the throttle, the air coming in across the wick, and then you can't have a spray of raw petrol going into the engine. It's always a gas. So I think it's a much better idea. I don't know how much petrol you can get going through it, how much the wick takes, but I'm sure with modern technology, it's possibly worth another look. So there we are. It was better for fuel consumption and things, but think, no jets getting stuck, no metering devices or anything like that, no carbon build-ups. A very simple idea, and he was, like I say, a he won a gold medal, look, in 1905. So he's worth a look at. Lanchester. He invented a machine gun, all sorts of things. There's some photos of his books of his cars with Lanchester chassis, because of course you bought the chassis and had there's an armoured car he built, but that was only one of the small ones, and he built some very interesting vehicles. There's the last armoured car, the Lanchester factory design. They used those in Burma in the Second World War, and it was notable in that it could go as fast backwards as it could forwards as well. There's some more Lanchester cars. So anyway, sorry for not driving the little car out, but there we are. The weather has been awful due to the jet stream. So if you want to have a little look up the jet stream, because we've got the doomsayers saying, oh, it's boiling temperature now. Well, I'm not boiling. I've got socks on, jumper on, everything. I am ranting a bit, I understand. But look into the jet stream. It was only discovered in the 40s when the B-29 Super Fortresses could fly that high. Up until then, nobody knew it, so it wasn't in the earlier weather books. But that's what drives the weather. It's the wind, and that's the wind drives the ocean currents as well. But it's anyway. Perhaps people get round to it. Anyway, here we go. Here's the book, The Lanchester Legacy, by C.S. Clarke, and it's an expensive set of books, I must say, but well worth it. Who publishes it? I think it's the Lanchester Society, Coventry. Anyway, I hope that's something for you to think about. Anyway, it's certainly different to me singing, which I do enjoy as well. One of the problems is, if you can do, people like it if you can. People like it if you can do one thing, but they're not very keen if you find out that you can do two things. They say, well, that's not right. But anyway, there we go. Anyway, all the best to you, and I hope you're keeping warm wherever you are and dry. So Lanchester and Granville Bradshaw. Goodbye. Granville.